Wow, you know what that reminded me of?
Episode 50!
Full Metal Alchemist. All right, episode 50, and we're at about 1 year of doing this.
All right.
It's kind of like a 1 year.
It's our anniversary.
It's your anniversary. All right, so we're at episode 50, and we are going to continue with breathing. Okay, it's important in order to get the best results from what we're about to do today to go back 2 episodes, episode 48, where we talked about breathing to setting a baseline, because we went over breathing on your belly, crocodile breathing, breathing on your back, half kneeled standing, and if you have a good foundation there, then you are going to be able to do one of the things we're doing today, which is diaphragmatic or decompression, not diaphragmatic, decompression breathing, which is a little bit challenging to do. In essence, it's really, we want to think about how can you breathe to have better posture. Now, before we go about talking about posture,
Did everybody just sit up a little taller?
I heard an awesome...
Whenever you hear the word posture, remember when I put all the books on my head?
I do.
All right.
Yeah.
You can look back for that episode.
I heard a great definition of posture, and it was basically how many positions can you get into and breathe and then get out of that position. The more of those that you have in your repertoire, the better your posture is. The less you have of that, the worse your posture is. I really like that definition because posture doesn't mean just standing still in one position. And the thing with breathing is if you can't take a breath there, you can't really thrive and survive there. So try to find multiple positions that you're able to breathe in, get out of that squatting, standing, running, doing kung fu, all that other stuff. So that is my thing on posture. For you 40 Fit Fu people who are also doing kung fu, I think one of the best ways to think of setting your position for posture is the ready position. In our style, also known as Ibe. So there's multiple things that happen there, and it is taking a deep breath in, moving your arms to show like what's a good position to kind of get into, and then preparing yourself for movement. Last episode we talked about breathing for kicking and punching, so we kind of addressed the breathing, the moving part, but today we're going to talk about breathing for posture. And so here is my thoughts on that. Is most of us are spending a lot of time in front of desks, in front of our phones, and basically getting a forward head posture. And so in the same way that people are putting stress in their low back, if you think of your cervical spine and divide it into 2 parts, lower cervical and upper cervical, the lower part of your neck and the upper part of your neck, it's similar to your back, your low back and your mid back. And so the lower part should be stable and the upper part should be mobile. And a really good way for you to kind of start practicing getting into that type of position is pushing that chin back and the back of the neck long. And this is actually pretty challenging for some people, which is why we started with that breathing from 2 episodes ago on your back, because you don't have to fight gravity. But I'm going to use this stick as if it were a wall, because it'll be a good way to demonstrate. And I already know Mimi's got great posture. I'm always very jealous of it. But what you can do is, if you imagine this is the wall, you get your butt on the wall, your upper back on the wall, and then you push your head into the wall. And what I'm going to ask her to do is kind of tuck her chin in and think of making the back of her neck long. So I'm going to place my hand here, and I want you to push up into it and try to get taller. And now I'm going to move away, bam, and I mean that's a pretty good position. And what you'll notice, this is me in the fitness field, is there's a lot of people whose shoulder blades jet out. That's me. And so like I'd be able to take my finger and like dig it into the shoulder blade. I cannot do that with Mimi because she has it set in a very good position. And what a lot of people have is kind of this winged out shoulder blade position, because when they think about posture, they think pinch those shoulder blades back, right? And see what happens, kind of the neck goes forward. Let me move this nice hair out of the way. So when you think of, I saw what you did there, that was very nice. Very Vidal Sassoon. So when you think of posture, one of the first things is getting this position of pulling the head back. And that has been a very big game changer for me, because when I first started talking about posture, trying to improve it for myself, my first instinct was always this, bang. And what we're doing is we're kind of extending the low back, we're still jutting the head forward. It's not really helping us here, as opposed to thinking of getting tall, back of the neck long, kind of tuck that chin in. So, anything to add? You want to add to that?
Just that how it relates to Kung Fu is basically while you're doing Kung Fu, you also don't want to be in that, bad posture, so to speak, right? So it's not that you're always going to be like perfectly straight up and down, because like earlier I was doing kind of mantis stuff, right? But so you are moving, but at the same time, like everything should still be in a certain type of alignment. So if you can learn to set yourself when you're not doing that movement, hopefully that will translate and transfer over to when you are moving, and you don't lose that. And so that is why you have to actively practice this, because then it becomes kind of part of the way you move, versus you having to think about, while I'm doing, stick or something like that, okay, suddenly now I'm doing a weapon, and like, I have to think, I shouldn't have to think about, okay, where are my shoulders, where's my back, where am I looking, all of this stuff, right? You shouldn't be having to think about it, and if you do these exercises that Oscar is suggesting, then hopefully that means when you go to do weaponry, or when you go to do like more complicated Kung Fu movements, it'll be more natural, right? You shouldn't have to really like think about it.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And not any movement can be complicated, right? So you want to be in the best possible position as you enter that movement, realizing that then you should be able to move in and out of those movements and be put in a lot of different positions.
Like your first definition.
Yeah, and so, my first definition of posture. So just to kind of like reiterate and go through like a little bit of a checklist. Number one is make sure that you're really comfortable with that, the video that we did on breathing to set your baseline, because that takes care, checklists a lot of stuff. Even though you're on your back, you're checklisting good position, the proper type of breathing, and so we won't go into too much of that type of detail. But throughout the day, as many times as you can, catch yourself being here, and instead of thinking, good posture means shoulders back, but this kind of elongating and using something like a wall, we use a stick as the example, as where those positions should be, is a great place to start. Because you have to be able to be in that position to then be able to do the next step, which is the breathing into that position. And so I'm just going to go through some decompression breathing. I think I briefly talked about this in a previous 45th Fu episode. I don't know which one, but I'm going to go a little bit deeper into it and realize that this comes from the fabulous people at Foundation Training. And if you want to learn more about that, you can kind of research those guys. But for me, this has been something that I put multiple inputs of this type of breathing throughout the day, and it has benefited me tremendously. So let's talk about decompression breathing, which is basically you trying to elongate, expand, elevate, and expand the ribs to be able to put yourself in a good position. And I'm going to coach Mimi through it. There is a specific foot position for this, but to save time, we're going to skip that part, and we're just going to think about the breathing part. So first thing is, I think this is a good angle to be at, is you need to find the shelf of your ribs. Right? Kind of like right where the ribs end and the belly begins and the abdomen begins. And you take your thumbs and kind of put it in that position. I used to do the lowest part of my ribs, but now I kind of like the shelf of my ribs. You can kind of experiment with this. And then your pinky is going to find the front of the hips, the front of the pelvis. And you're making like a shaka sign, just like when we were in Hawaii. And so you're not going to be fully extended there. You shouldn't be. Because now what I'm going to ask Mimi to do is when she breathes in, to try to expand in all directions. So take a big breath in.
I just did, and now, okay.
So take a big breath in, and she's expanding and elevating. And then exhale and try to maintain that. So the first step, I think, is a little easier. Expand and elevate, inhale. The second part, a little bit more challenging, is to hold that expansion and elevation as you exhale by drawing your belly button in, or think of drawing your belly button away from the pant line. Okay? And relax for a second. If you do it right, it's not easy, right?
Yeah, it's very tired.
Yeah.
And I need a nap now.
but I will, and I always give Mimi props on having good posture. It's easier for her to do because she's not fighting a lot of breaks. It was really challenging for me to learn this because my body just was used to being in this position.
I wouldn't say it was easy.
Easier. I said easier. It's easier for her to do. But you know, with anything you do, you can kind of crank up the intensity and make it as hard as you can.
And you do, if you're doing it right, you're gonna feel stuff happening. Right. You're gonna feel like, wow, why am I getting tired?
Yeah.
Even just the air.
Right.
You know, pushing the air in, bringing it in, and then pushing it out. Even that's
right.
can be taxing.
And so I am going to demonstrate a little bit of it so you can maybe visually see the difference on me as well. Keep in mind that there's more parts to this, but if you can just get that concept of the ribs in the back, you're trying to expand them back, trying to fill air in. So it's almost like you're trying to reach the back of your ribs to the wall behind you. And when you inhale, you're also trying to elevate. So because Mimi's my wife, I'm going to put my hands on her, and I want you to take a big breath in, and I'm going to lift up. And it's kind of like this is what's happening. You're lifting up the ribs, and then they're expanding from each side. And the cool thing is that your ribs are expanding, and from underneath, they're almost pushing your shoulders out that way. So as opposed to this position, we're getting this position, which is a much stronger position to be in. Does that make sense? I know you see me doing this all the time, so it's probably just like second.
Yes, Oscar does this all the time.
Right.
I'll be walking and he'll be doing his positions, and there's all sorts of other positions as well.
And we're not going to go into that
but
because it's complicated.
I have to walk by and he's doing his decompression.
Yeah. So I'm just going to go through.
Sometimes in line, out in public.
Yeah, I'm
in
going to
China,
go. I'm going to go through a couple of steps of how I do it, and then tell you where are some places where you can do this. So if you see me from the side here, my first thing is I'm going to try to kind of tuck my chin and elevate up. So it's very prominent on me because I've got a larger head than Mimi, but also I don't have any hair. But this bony protrusion in the back of my head, I'm going to try to lift it up and back.
Like now, if I were a crane?
If you were a crane, or even better, the predator.
Oh, predator.
Yeah, after the predator ripped the person's skull out. Okay?
I was thinking that earlier, when you said the spine, like how in the video games you just,
yeah, perfect. And now I'm going to do the decompression breathing. So the first part is this inhale, expand and elevate, and then I'm going to exhale, maintain that. My elbows are active, so if maybe we're pushing against my elbows in, that's what should be happening. And now I'm going to relax, but not lose what I just gained. And now I'm in a pretty good postural
position. He always says, do I look taller?
Yeah, I feel good. And I'll tell you what, right now this feels a lot more natural to me, but when I first started doing this, I thought that I was like puffing up my chest a lot because I was just so used to not being like this. But I'm confident now and I feel good. I feel good in this position. But to your point earlier of like, where do you do this? We could be standing in line and I don't go into this aggressive thing, but I start breathing, and there have been a couple times where Mimi's been right in front of me. I start doing decompression breathing. She turns around and then looks up because my eyes were not where they were before.
He did get taller, yeah.
They're like a little bit higher.
You did your decompression.
Yeah, I did my decompression breathing. Waiting in line. Yeah, waiting in line is a great time. It's also great if every once in a while when you stand up from your desk to do a couple of decompression breaths. Right before you're about to sit back down, do a couple of decompression breaths. Knowing that you can't maintain that, but the more inputs that you put throughout the day, the better the change, the better and the faster the change will be if you are someone who doesn't have good posture. So that is my whole thing on decompression breathing. There's one other way that you can do it, a little bit more relaxed way to kind of set your posture, and it would be, again, going back to a couple of episodes ago where we talked about breathing to bring your baseline, and then slowly standing up. And then when you think about your shoulders, you kind of would be in this position, and I would just say, bring your arms out to the side a little bit, and then bring from here, bring your elbows down without kind of pinching them back, just let them bring down, and then settle your arms. And it's a much, like if you were to go from here and just stand up, open the arms, bring the elbows down, it's an easier, smoother way to do it as opposed to bang, this position, which is also not good for you. That's all I got
So,
for.
just in a wrap up, just you can look back at the YouTube or even on the Facebook videos. They're all still there, so you can see episodes 48, 49, and 50, and how they come together to
I like what you
create
just did there.
one breathing episode. So you can kind of see that full, first, second, third step. So you have 3 different options for 3 different scenarios and when and what you need it for. But basically, keep breathing.
Keep breathing. And this reminds me of sometimes you need to hear the same thing multiple times in a lot of different ways for it's a hit. And one of the instructors at the Wallam Temple, Sifu 2, who is awesome with the Geam, the double-edged sword. Remember, and his mantis. So he's someone who has good posture because he's able to breathe in a lot of different positions. Is when I was going and practicing my sword form once, he said, one of the masters, Chen Daoyan, once said, when you set up and you do Geam, make sure that you do this. And I was like, in my mind, I was like, so it's sort of like a decompression breath. So not that it's the same, but it's almost the same. And a lot of smart people come to the same conclusion, but from different angles. And so when you hear something, try to find what's good or what's similar about it, as opposed to just like completely dismissing it. I guess that's my point.
Yeah, don't dismiss it.
Oh,
Also, if you want to posture and breathe with a sword, that always feels cool too.
Yeah. Posture and
Everything's
breathing
better with a sword, so.
Yeah. So this was episode 50, 1 year anniversary also for us. We're super happy. We committed. We did 1 year. Okay, we can quit. No, just kidding. But moving forward, we want to ask you what you want us to talk about.
Yeah.
I have some ideas of kind of what the next steps would be, which is maybe going into some kung fu stances and how to build on that. But I really want to make it about you guys. We want to make sure that
Yes, so please ask us questions and give us some feedback. You can go back through and check and see with the episodes if there was anything that you want to reiterate, go back over, or anything like that. You could just let us know. That would be really helpful. And you can also always ask questions live too. I know a lot of people say, I don't catch you live, but I watch it after. It's okay, you can still comment or drop us an email or on our Instagram or whatnot, and you can see Sifu Mimi Chan at Control Your Health, and you can reach out to us, and we're really happy to try to give you more tips and tricks.
I also want to give
because we do keep, it's a year later, so we're way over in our 40s and 50s and 60s, right? So everybody's a year older with us. So as we do that together, we definitely want to improve together.
And I just want to say, real good, quick shout out to Chad, who's watching. He is the person who introduced me to decompression breathing and kind of taught me and kind of pointed me in that direction, and it has helped me out a lot. So thanks to you. And if you're in LA, go check him out because he's got his own
movement mechanic.
He's got his own thing going on over there.
Yeah.
So anyway, please communicate with us. Let us know what you want us to demonstrate. Aunt Lucas, I will demonstrate to you personally later. Whatever you need, just send your request by message. All right.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for watching. See you next Tuesday, 7:45.